Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light, and this is my podcast. Hello, everybody. And today my co host is Jory. So say hello, Jory.
Hello, everyone, and once again, thank you for bringing me into your living rooms this fine evening.
Don't forget that there is moderator Maya. Please be nice to moderator Maya and producer Jeremy. So if sometimes you hear me say, huh, what? It's Jeremy in my ear and not just me being crazy. I want to tell you that next week's podcast is going to be about conspiracy theories. And since our last conspiracy theory podcast didn't go to YouTube, this one will, but it's going to be a different one. So sorry about that, because you guys missed like probably the best podcast ever. Probably, don't you think, Jor?
It was pretty entertaining, I'd say.
Yeah, I thought it was probably number one in the world, probably.
Okay.
Today, we are talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren. We're going to tell you everything you have ever or never wanted to know about Ed and Lorraine Warren. The way we're going to come at this is we're going to come at facts about the Warrens and their life and the books and movies they were involved in. And we're also going to come at with you guys with some skeptical views and what I consider to be a bombshell allegation. Now, I am not trying to change your opinion about the Warrens or change your opinion about their life's work. These are just facts, and everyone can decide for themselves if they continue to believe in the Warrens and their work, if they become a little skeptical, if they somehow end up thinking that the Warrens are chupacabras. That's up to you guys. We're not trying to sway your opinion, okay?
Can I ask you a question?
You have to say Tracy first.
Or exit light?
Tracy. Hi,
Tracy.
Rob. I know you're out there. Right now he's thinking, her accent's still bad. Okay. Yes, you can ask me a question.
So please explain why you keep referring to the Warrens as chupacabras.
Well, because when we were doing folklore and things that it wasn't folklore, or was it things that were it was folklore? Okay, we were talking about different animals or werewolves and things like this that are used in folklore, and the one thing that I thought was a real creature, I found out that the chupacabra is completely not a real thing. Completely not. As a matter of fact, what happened was there was a movie, I believe it was in the 80s, and it was based in Puerto Rico, and it was about this monster, the chupacabra. Well, apparently it had been depicted as this being a true story, so the people in Puerto Rico thought that there was a true monster called the chupacabra. And right after that movie came out, there started being sightings of chupacabras and people saying that their livestock had been killed by chupacabras. And in fact, chupacabras are nothing more than stray dogs, or like what are the weird dogs that I keep wanting to say? Yeah, like a coyote. I want to say a dingo. I do not live in Australia. Dingoes.
Dingoes
Dingo
ate
my baby.
Sorry to our Australian viewers.
So, whenever I find something that I really want to be true, and it turns out that it completely is not true, I refer to it as a chupacabra. So there you go.
Okay. We were going over it over our production meeting yesterday, and you kept referring to them as chupacabra, and I was like, they're human beings.
You don't know. They could be skinwalkers. You don't know. Oh my
All right. I
gosh.
feel better now.
Okay. Have you not been keeping up with our own podcast?
Well, last week's podcast, I was in the chat, but I was bouncing back and forth between doing other things as well. So that was probably a part where I had it on, but I was probably distracted and I didn't hear it.
Right. Well, yeah, because something in last week's podcast, which I can't, this is terrible. What was last week's podcast about?
Folklore?
No.
Right?
No, last week's podcast was about, hey, Jeremy.
Oh,
Real hauntings. That's right.
Yeah.
And the haunting in Connecticut
and movies
was, real hauntings turned into movies. And the haunting in Connecticut seems to be the chupacabra of those. So that's it. That's it.
Hey,
I like to say the word too. It feels good. Chupacabra.
Producer Jeremy and moderator Maya, can we start getting shirts made up with chupacabra on them for Exit Light merch?
Yeah, that's what we should do. That's what we should do. That's funny.
I believe that Donald Trump is chupacabra. Exit Light.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, before we get started, I do want to tell you that if you are interested, the Warrens have a webpage. It's run by their son-in-law, I believe, who is super creepy. And their nephew is also involved in paranormal stuff. And what show is he on, Jor? Sorry. Sorry.
Haunted Collect. His name is John Zaffis, and he does the show Haunted Collector, where he goes to homes that are haunted and looks for possible objects that would be causing the haunting.
Can I ask you something?
Okay.
Are these always very expensive objects?
Not always. A lot of it's like a family inherits a home and then it's haunted, and they find out like their great-great-grandpa's rifle, which shot and killed somebody 100 years ago, is still in the house and it's causing the haunting.
Oh.
It's just a lot of it's like family heirlooms or stuff that's found on the property of the home. Like,
so do they go in and they're like, oh my God, this whole set of silver is haunted. I'll take it now.
If I was him, I'd be like, that safe you have in the corner, according to our research, caused the death of 5 human beings in 1985. I'm gonna have to take that as safe. But that safe has that life savings in it. Oh,
you know that antique diamond ring you're wearing? Totally haunted. Can I have it now? It was my great grandmother's. Oh well, she was a witch.
This entire oceanfront property is haunted. We're gonna have to confiscate the entire property. If you can sign that deed over to me, I'd appreciate it. So we can get you to safety. We need to make sure that your safety is of the utmost concern.
Hey, Jory, there's a business to be had there.
Well,
okay.
He's got
a
TV show. He's already got that market cornered.
He doesn't have it cornered. They haven't met us. All right. So it's warrens.net, and it is as creepy and as spooky as you would want it to be. So if you guys, after this, of course, would like to take a look over there, it's pretty fun. And I'm going to do a little promotion for them. They're having a Halloween party this year on October 26th, and it's an evening with Annabelle and mystical items of the occult. I'd pay good money to do that. That would be cool. So anyway, if you guys want to go head over there and look, I think you guys will like it. Anybody interested in the paranormal and stuff is going to like seeing that. So let me give you a little bit of history on the Warrens. Now, the Warrens are the preeminent people in paranormal investigations. They are the go-to for a lot of priests and the police and anybody who feels like they have a haunting. Oh, by the way, Ed Warren is dead now. But and Lorraine, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to call him through a Ouija board. But
Oh, by the way, Ed Warren's dead. Anyway,
he probably won't show up, and if he does, get out. Lorraine is in her 90s. She's retired, but she does do some consulting on films and things like that. So for over 50 years, Ed and Lorraine Warren had done this type of work. There were cases where priests became possessed, cases where people are physically attacked, cases where what they call unworldly entities manifest and then live there. They had cases where time is violated and the physical environment is completely rearranged. Cases where spirits don't just haunt a house, they visibly tear it apart. And Lorraine Warren dedicated their lives to this work, and they share the wisdom they have gained during their extraordinary career in this field. And this is obviously, written about them by, I believe it was their son-in-law. The work they perform is remarkable, and you can be certain, after all this time, they know things that are completely astounding. The cases they divulge will shock you, yet it is the significance of what they say that will actually floor you. Moreover, the Warrens don't mince words. They know what they're talking about. They've seen it. They have done it. The Warrens reveal methods and motives behind spirit activity. And they reveal what breaks the peace in a haunted house. So I'm going to read one more thing. Ed Warren considers himself to be a demonologist. Well, he did. Sorry. It's really hard to talk about him not still here. Lorraine Warren is a trance medium. They are not occultists. It says here, they are not strange, although you have to be a little on the quirky side, I think, They are essentially ordinary people who happen to do highly extraordinary work. Ed Warren the way Ed Warren became a paranormal investigator was that he sort of invented this job for himself. Before that, he was in the Navy. He was a police officer. And then he did what they describe as self-taught and self-professed demonologist. Lorraine professes to be a clairvoyant and a light trance medium who, obviously, she works with her husband. A quote about them is that, in reality, the only way possible to function in their work is to never have an axe to grind. It's said that they never go in angry, or how do I explain this? They say that they never go in trying to prove that what the people are saying is true. They would more like to disprove it, which, you'll have to judge that for yourself. The forces they confront are religious entities that, by their own admission, exist for the sheer purpose of opposing the works of God. Diabolical forces are formidable. These forces are eternal, and they exist today. In a world that scoffs at ghosts and laughs at the unusual, the Warrens deliver a contrary message, and that message is, the fairy tale is true, the devil exists, God exists. And for us, as people, our very destiny hinges upon which one we elect to follow, which is a very important part of the Warrens because their persona is very strict Catholics. And we're going to talk about later the skeptics and how Ed Warren would address skeptics through religion. So it's a very important thing to keep in your mind when we're talking about that. In 1952, the Warrens founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, which was, pretty outstanding for 1952. I can't imagine that caught a lot of flack. They are the oldest hunting group in New England. They have authored numerous books about the paranormal and about their private investigations. They claim to have investigated 10,000 cases or more during their career. They were among the very first investigators in the controversial Amityville haunting. According to the Warrens, the New England Society for Psychic Research uses a variety of individuals, including medical doctors, researchers, police officers, nurses, college students, and members of the clergy in its investigation. And that's also something that is important to remember later on when we talk about the skeptics. Many people swear that they are the real deal, in particular devout Christians. According to Ed Warren, and this is something I really need you to remember for this entire podcast, one has to believe in God in order to understand the couple's research. Okay, so that's his quote. You have to believe in God in order to understand their research. What is strange to me is that the whole medium thing is in complete disagreement with everything I was raised in as far as Christianity goes. And I've said on my podcast many, many times that I was raised deep in Christianity, evangelical Christianity. And we are taught that you run, don't walk away from somebody who thinks they're a psychic or a medium, who wants to read your palms. Any of that stuff is of the devil. So it's really odd, and maybe it doesn't. And I don't know about the particular part of Christianity that is Catholicism. Maybe that's not the same way with them. Maybe, and then Rob can probably, he's in the chat. Rob can probably tell us if that is a conflict at all with the Catholic religion. But for me, growing up, and this is someone, and I've said this before as well, I believe I have a certain degree of some sort of I wouldn't say psychic ability, I don't know what it is. I have these feelings of things that could happen. I don't know how to explain it, but I wouldn't call it psychic. So for me growing up, I would never tell anybody something like that because I would probably end up with an exorcism somewhere. So Jeremy, is Rob talking about how I can't see the chat. Has Rob responded about the Catholicism? Come on, Rob. I'm talking to you. If you don't do it, I'll start doing my British accent. Okay, so they have obviously been behind some of the most popular horror movies for generations. The Amityville Horror, The Haunting in Connecticut, The Conjuring. There were 17 films in the Amityville Horror series alone. 17? I did not know this. The Conjuring 2, Annabelle. Annabelle Creation. They have another spinoff coming out this summer, which is The Nun, or probably around Halloween. It's The Nun. I think most of us have seen the poster, at least, for The Nun coming. So, yes. Okay, so in the Catholic Church, they feel the same way about psychics, palm readers, all that kind of stuff. So it's really weird for me that they say that especially Christians believe they are the real deal, because I don't know, having grown up that way, we would not have had anything to do with that at all, let alone talk about them being the real deal. I'm reading my notes, but I can go into chat real quick. Robert said, where? I must not be able to see what Robert said.
Mediums.
Right. Okay, so you guys, I'm being talked to in my ear. So Rob says this: the Catholic Church warden will know about demons, but they do have exorcists on their books. On their books. They do train priests to be exorcists. Right. They do believe in demons and exorcisms. As far as I know, officially, it's the only part of the huge Christian religion that includes a bunch of different offshoots that officially does exorcisms. Although I do know that evangelicals, from my experience, do them too. But you're supposed to stay away from clairvoyance, mediums, horoscopes, and that is not part of the Catholic dogma. Yes. And he said you would learn that if you're going to Catholic schools. Yeah. Yeah, we were never supposed to read a horoscope. That was like off limits. You never read a horoscope. By the way, a Diabolical Witness says that it's $300 per plate to go to that Warren thing. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'll go get my own Raggedy Ann doll. That's kind of much. Okay, so what we're going to do now, finally, Jory, do you have anything to say, Jory, about what I just rattled on about?
Oh, I get to talk now.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I did say comments, but you didn't respond, so I thought, well, maybe he was asleep.
No, I thought you were asking Rob for some reason. I will say that to start your own paranormal group in the early 1950s is definitely ballsy, because the spiritual movement slowed down because people like Houdini, ironically, were able to catch people fraudulating paranormal activity so they can make money off of people.
That's right.
So
that's an interesting aspect. Yeah.
So for you to come out in the 1950s and be like, we're a paranormal investigation group and we're gonna solve your hauntings, and then be able to create a 50-year career out of it, that's pretty amazing, especially with the majority of their works. Well, I shouldn't say the majority, but a good chunk of their works becoming books and movies. I dare you to find any paranormal investigator who can say they've had the same happen for them. So.
Oh no, they really hit a gold mine. I mean, if it wasn't for the Warrens, I don't believe there would be a Zach Bagans. They really led the trail for those kind of investigations, and for, like you said, after the whole Houdini thing, in which Houdini had gone to a clairvoyant and they were completely wrong, and he made it a life's mission to debunk everything that had to do with the supernatural. Then it became, like you said, really out of favor. So, and I'm supposed to say that, hold on a second, I'm supposed to say that also the Jewish religion does have exorcisms. And you're right, I did talk about all the religions that do exorcisms. in a podcast. But I think that for the most part, no matter what, I think any American, if they think their house is haunted, the first thing they're going to do is call a priest, right? Even if you're not Catholic, myself included.
Well,
Myself included.
you'll go to a spiritual leader of any form if you can figure
Yeah, but
out.
I think right off the top of your head, the first thing everybody thinks is get the priest.
Yeah, which
Do you
unfortunately, unless you belong to the church, not a lot of them will help you.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think they can perform exorcisms on people who are not Catholics. So I don't get that whole. If you're not part of this, then you can't do that. Go live with your demon. I just don't. I don't. Whatever. That's beside the point. Which is where I often go. Anyway.
We praise God and we combat demons, but if you're not a part of the church, we're not going to combat your demon.
Yeah.
That'll show Satan.
Yeah. Go take your demon and go home.
Darn, you're not a part of the church? You win this one, Lucifer.
We're laughing about demons. Okay, well, that's one way. Anyway, so anything else you want to add?
I'm cycling through everything you said in my brain now.
I'm sorry.
See, it's funny. So you were discussing about how you were raised very hardcorely Christian.
Yeah.
And then when I was born, you kind of steered me away from that. So
well,
reading.
Hey, can we back up here for a minute?
Well, I should say it wasn't forced down my throat.
What I did was come to the conclusion that organized religion, in my opinion, was not following the Word of God in their judgments of other people because I had gone through a situation. Am I going to have to tell something personal about myself in every podcast?
No, you don't have to get deep. I was just saying,
Yeah, in my experience with these churches that I grew up in my whole life, that I have said before that my grandparents founded, a major evangelical church that you would recognize. There's at least 2 of them in your city right now. So, and I saw the reactions to and how people were treated, and I felt that maybe organized religion wasn't acting in the best faith to people. So that's what I taught you, and that's how I've talked to the other kids about it. If you guys, I just feel that maybe there's alternative reasons for keeping people in the church and tithing, and oh my gosh, I just lost everybody. Anyway, go on, Jory.
All right. No, I was just saying that you didn't raise me the way you were raised, so
right.
Something as simple as opening the newspaper and seeing a horoscope didn't scare me because I wasn't raised that way.
Right.
Learning about psychics and what they supposedly do and all that stuff never, oh shoot, I better not read about this, Mom will get mad. Like none of that stuff ever affected me because I was never raised that way.
Right.
So it's just funny how, and I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago with the Conspiracy Theory podcast. It's amazing what people can be influenced to do or to believe after a certain period of time, because you were raised to not even, like if you were to even come across a horoscope, oh no, I can't do that.
I still won't to this day.
Yeah, and for me,
enough, I still won't read a horoscope to this day.
Yeah, and for me, I really don't care. Like, I'll see my horoscope and I'll be like, oh, I'm supposed to find love today. Well, I found that 10 years ago, but okay.
Yeah, it's funny because there are things so burnt into my psyche that to this day I won't. I will stay away from it. I won't do it. You know, like I wrote a story about it on my channel about the old woman who in New Orleans who was reading palms. She was in a closed an enclosed entryway that between two buildings, and I think there might have been a staircase that she was sitting on. It was very dark and rainy, and she was sitting there. The exact picture of an old tarot card palm reader woman. You know what I mean? I mean, wearing black clothes.
A gypsy.
I almost, yeah. Well, yeah. I almost didn't see her. And she was a palm reader, and I really wanted to get my palm read, and I wouldn't do it. I thought if anybody in this world is legit, it's this woman is in New Orleans who's legit. You know what I mean?
Right.
She's not even, she doesn't even have a storefront. She just wants to read your palm or tell you your fortune. She's not really looking for the big bucks. So that's a legit to me. And not that you guys out there who have a storefront, just putting my foot in my mouth. But there was a feeling that this person would be the person to go to, and I wouldn't do it. There's just things that are burnt into my psyche. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you want to tell about the Warren cases?
Sure. Let me get this pulled up. All right, so the first haunting I will start with is what The Conjuring is based off of, and it's called the Perron family haunting. All right. When Roger and Carolyn Perron moved their family, including their 5 young daughters, to their 200-acre home in Harrisville, Rhode Island, they were unaware of its allegedly insidious former resident. Originally built, let me just say, this information that I have right now I got from thelineup.com, if anybody wants to look. You can find it in other places like Ranker and whatnot, but this is where I landed on. Okay, so originally built in 1736, the country home was once inhabited by Bethesda Thayer and her 4 children, 3 of whom died young. Despite the era's high infant mortality rates, those deaths and the circumstances around them roused suspicion within the town.
Wait, was this Bathsheba? Was that Bathsheba? Is that her name? Bathsheba?
Yeah, Bathsheba.
Okay.
Bathsheba, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bethesda Thayer, the original Fallout survivor. Bathsheba. Okay, anyways. Resulting in the ostracism of Thayer. Labeled a Satanist by her community members, she allegedly hanged herself in her backyard. While the Perron family lived in the home, numerous pleasant ghostly interactions, like spirits playing with the children or helping to do chores, but so were darker interactions from ghosts like Thayer's, who took on a more menacing presence in the home. Disembodied voices, furniture moving on its own, and full spectral appearances were among the many ghostly experiences shared by the Perron family.
This is The Conjuring.
Yes, this is the haunting that inspired The Conjuring. Matriarch Carolyn was allegedly one of Thayer's most consistent targets. Supposedly jealous of the living woman's role as both mother and wife. The ghost reportedly pinched and slapped Carolyn quite a bit, and even touched Roger inappropriately on several occasions. Oh. The Warrens were brought in to help in 1974, but their presence aggravated the conditions, and Thayer's supposed ghosts so much that the family eventually asked them to leave. Horror icon James Wan turned the Perron's experience into his box office hit, The Conjuring, in 2013.
They asked the Warrens to leave?
Yep.
You know, I just did a podcast about the Perron family last week, and that haunting, because we did famous hauntings turned into movies. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that they asked them to leave.
Well, it's funny because when you watch the movie, the Warrens saved the mother from a possession, and and cleanse the house, save the entire family, and everything goes back to good again. And then you read this, and it was like, you have aggravated our ghost. Please get the hell out of here.
Well, the movie, yeah, Lorraine Warren was on the set of that movie, and she said that she wouldn't let anything be on there that didn't actually happen. So they showed Ed performing an exorcism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind, Lorraine was on set and said she wouldn't let anything that didn't happen. When they showed Ed doing the exorcism, she said that Ed would never do an exorcism because he's not a priest. He would never, never, never do that. So it's sort of strange to me to hear on one hand she was in control of what was shown, and on the other hand they did show that, and she was like, nope, that never happened.
Well,
so I don't know if she had a change of heart.
It's interesting. The parents were also on set, and they never had anything changed from the movie either that I know of.
Yeah, I think it was Andrea Perrin.
Yeah, the children were on the set, and I know, actually, if I remember correctly, I remember about the ghostly stuff that happened on the Conjuring set, and one of the children mysteriously got hurt while just on the set of the Conjuring.
Hold on a second? Can I ask something? Is Jory cutting out to everybody or just me? Okay. Do you have any other internet stuff going on, Jory? Yeah, they say you're cutting out on
Nope.
the podcast too.
No, I'm just what I'm reading from thelineup.com.
No, from the whole time you've been cutting in and out.
I'm not running any other internet source, though. I'm just reading what I have on my phone, and that's it. Am I
Is your
still
phone
cutting out?
Not right now, you're not. No. Is your phone on the internet or is it on data?
My phone's on internet.
Okay. Well, Mad Meerkat says that we both are cutting out.
Well, Mom was cutting out earlier, but she's been fine for a little while now.
Okay. Okay, well, you sound fine right now, too.
Okay. Did you hear what I had said prior?
That one of the Perrin kids got hurt on the set?
Yeah, she mysteriously got hurt on the set of The Conjuring, and it caused the rest of the family to leave because they thought they were provoking that ghost again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I can't think of her name right now, but the lady who portrayed Lorraine Warren said that she would have stuff happen to her at her home while trying to
Mia
get the character.
what's her name? Something for Miga.
Yeah.
Maya knows because Maya is a fan of hers. Yeah, everybody says you're cutting out, but you haven't been for a couple minutes. What's her name, Jeremy? Something for Miga? Yeah, it's not Tasha. That's her sister. She's this Formiga is the older one. So they thought that because they were on the property again, that it was starting.
No.
What?
They weren't on the property of the home. It was just
being there on the shoot.
Them just reenacting what happened to them. They thought was attracting the attention of Bathsheba again somehow.
Huh.
After one of the parents got injured, and then, like I said, the female lead of the movie, while preparing for the role, started having ghostly encounters happen to her too.
Vera Farmiga.
Yeah, Vera Farmiga.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's another case that Warren's worked on?
Okay, here we go. So everybody's going to know this one, and if you don't, you've been living under a rock. The Amityville case. Arguably the most famous of Ed and Lorraine Warren's paranormal investigations, this investigation has been adapted into a frightening and seemingly unending film franchise.
No
This
kidding.
Warren case involved the Lutz family. Quick side note, my grandfather's name is Lutz.
Yeah, you cut out
So,
right before that. Quick side note. Jory's
uh,
grandfather's name is Lutz.
yeah.
Yeah, and was going to mention that last week when we talked about the Amityville horror, but I didn't know if you'd want me to say that or not, so I'm glad you brought it up because we did a podcast about folklore, and we did one on Bray Road, which has a connection to you, and then now we're talking about the Lutzes, which also has a connection to you, so that's funny.
Yeah. Ironically, my two family names also have two famous paranormal experiences behind them. No wonder I'm so into this stuff.
That's it.
The Lutzes took up residence in a suburban Dutch colonial house in Amityville, Long Island in 1975. Only a year before their move-in, the residence had been the site of a deadly mass murder when Ronald DeFeo Jr. brutally killed 6 members of his family. So, for those who don't know, Ronald DeFeo Jr. believed that he was being told by an unseen entity to kill his family. And he would spend a lot of his time in the basement at this time. And he was feeling very depressed and isolated. And he felt like he was possessed by a demon, and it made him kill all of his family members. So that's fun.
They better know because we talked about it in last week's podcast.
Well, if we have anyone new, or
I'm teasing.
If they missed it.
Yeah.
For 28 days, the Lutzes and their 3 children lived in that very same house. While there, the family reported antagonistic voices, swarms of flies, welts, family members levitating, banging noises, and unseen entities.
The Lutz family.
Yes. And also, as a sidebar, this property was built on Indian burial ground, which is the cause of 100% of every haunting ever known.
That's true. I feel bad about that. That seems like weird. I don't know. I feel like poor American Indians. They get every haunting ever.
I can see some properties built on American Indian burial, which then I can understand would cause hauntings, but it feels like almost every haunting I ever come across, this was built on. And if it wasn't burial ground, it was just Indian land. And to that I say, prior to Europeans coming over, wasn't this all Indian land?
Exactly. How is it? How are you not going to be? But ironically, our house that in Arizona that we had so many things happen in was built on property that it was a new community. So it was a new neighborhood, and they did it in like 3 or 4 steps. And we were the second step of this build. And on the third step of the build, they found Indian artifacts. And that was, of course, we're all the same on the same property. So, strangely enough, our house that nobody had ever lived in before and had things happen, and apparently the neighbors had things happen because somebody came to my house and asked me about it. Our houses had been built on the same thing. So anyway,
Ed and Lorraine Warren were eventually called in to cleanse the house and brought a local TV crew with them. After snapping photos, including one featuring a boy with glowing eyes, the Warrens determined that the land had curses on it. In a 2013 interview with Yahoo, Lorraine Warren said the Amityville house was the one case that haunts her the most. Amityville was horrible, she said during a press conference for The Conjuring. It was absolutely horrible. It followed us right straight across the country. I will never go in the Amityville house ever again. Wow.
See, that's interesting to me, especially since we're going to be talking about skeptics and stuff. I can imagine that at least from the Defoe murders alone, that house would have an energy to it. A lot of the stuff, there's a lot of people who accuse the Lutzes of, making up stories and trying to make money off of this, which they really didn't. But just from the Defoe murders, like Rob and I were talking last week, 5 children, not including the adults, 5 children were murdered in that house. So, I mean, knowing that, and maybe that's part of it, her knowing that going in, I mean, that's, I can't even imagine how dark that would feel. And heavy, real heavy,
Yeah, it would leave especially if Lorraine Warren was a psychic like she claims, it would leave a really dark stain.
Yeah.
For her to immediately pick up on.
I think most people have walked into a place and thought, "Oh, this feels good. I feel happy here," or the exact opposite. Oh, something is wrong here. And I think that would be real easy to do in the Amityville house. And the people there have been people who have lived there since who said that they haven't had any problems, but good for them.
Right.
But that is a house I don't think that I would feel comfortable in.
Yeah.
Like last week I was talking to Rob that every house for sale in the French Quarter says, and it's haunted, and that's a selling point. They add $50,000 on for that. But the Amityville is not like that. I think that takes some money off of it.
Right. Well, I don't know. That might be a unique house just because of all the movies made about it. And I know it's a huge tourist trap, and the owners have had to actually completely redesign the entire house to fool people from thinking that it's the Amityville or horror house.
Yeah.
Just so they could get tourists to stop coming to their house and being like, "Oh, wow, can I come in?"
No, I know. Can you imagine?
It's still private property. Get it? But if you were smart, you would turn that house into a bed and breakfast.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Is the Lizzie Borden house a bed and breakfast?
Yep, Lizzie Borden's house is a bed and breakfast. You can stay in the same room that her stepmom died in. You can go and sit on the same couch her dad was killed in.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Wow.
And you can stay there all night long. Yep.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
I would do that too. Where is the Lizzie Borden house?
Oh, is it in New York?
Is it?
You might have to have Maya or Jeremy look that up. I know it's somewhere in that general area, I think.
Maya, can you look that up?
I think it's in New York State.
And maybe somebody in the chat knows. I would love to do that. I'm not going to pay $300 to sit in a room with the Annabelle doll, but I don't know, spending the night there and everything. Yeah, the Lizzie Borden house.
Oh,
Massachusetts.
So, see, I was close.
Huh. Okay. Well, okay, so let's move on to another one of your and for the record, I just want to tell people that Jory and I are in separate homes, and Jory is married, and if you hear a little bit of background noise, Jory's wife is cooking dinner. So, life going on there. It's just life in the background a little bit. Okay, so
we don't have a fancy podcast studio like Joe.
Yeah.
Rogan.
Yeah, we're not Joe Rogan. You might even catch my dog walking around here and listen to her chain jingle. So
Anyways.
another one.
All right. Here's another one where, if you haven't heard of this, and we've already talked about it in just this podcast, Annabelle the doll. This investigation took the Warrens to a. Okay, someone wrote this wrong, so I'm just going to try and change it to my words. This investigation took the Warrens to a rather Oh, okay. I'm reading it wrong because I'm an idiot. This investigation took the Warrens to a thing rather than a place.
Yes.
Hey, I get an award.
You good reader.
I can read. More specifically, a Raggedy Ann doll that was purchased in an antique store. A much less sinister imagining than her 2014 Annabelle film counterpart, which when I saw the movie, I had heard of the Annabelle doll, but I had never seen the Annabelle doll. So when I saw the movie, I'm like, hell yeah, that thing's haunted.
No shit, yeah. Oops, sorry.
And then I see the Raggedy Ann doll. That's the Annabelle doll, and I was like, wait a second.
I know. And we used to have a Raggedy Ann doll. I don't know if you remember, but we did. And that's like the least scary doll imaginable. So I think that's why they had to crank it up a notch for the Annabelle movies, because they're like, Raggedy Ann? No one's going to be afraid of that.
Yeah. So I was a little pissed off at the Annabelle movie because I was like, what kind of a child looks at the movie Annabelle doll and says, "Oh my God, I gotta have it"? No child should look at that doll and say that's the cutest doll I've ever seen. No,
right?
It makes way more sense that a child owned a Raggedy Ann doll that ended up being haunted. Anyways, given to the buyer's daughter, the nursing student and her roommate quickly began to notice odd occurrences involving the doll, such as changing positions or rooms. That eventually escalated to messages on paper and blood on the doll's dress, and at one point, violence. Annabelle took particular aim at the fiancé of one roommate, who claims he woke up frozen in bed as the doll crawled up his body and strangled him.
Raggedy Ann.
I'm sorry. I would be creeped out if an inanimate object was crawling up my body, but it's got no thumbs. It's got no hands. And then it's a doll. Just pick it up and toss it across the room.
Now, this was given to somebody as a gift, right?
It was given to the daughter of somebody who lived in an apartment with roommates.
Right. And they got it from a thrift shop. Is that what you said?
Antique store.
An antique store.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Which is kind of amazing that a Raggedy Ann doll is already in an antique store at that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But, I think Raggedy Ann has probably been around for a long time. Which is why she's a cloth doll.
Yeah. Okay. He also allegedly claimed that upon entering a darkened room where the doll rested, he felt something attack him. When he flipped the switch, he saw his stomach covered in bloody scratches and the doll on the floor. Mm-hmm. The behavior freaked the roommates out so much that they called in a medium, who explained that she believed the doll as possessed by the spirit of a deceased 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins.
Oh, that's how they got the name.
Yeah. Higgins had supposedly died on the land where the apartment stood.
Wait. But this doll was in an antique store. Wouldn't it have made more sense to say that its previous owner had died? Not that... okay, what I'm trying to say is if they had taken this doll to any other property, it wouldn't have become haunted?
I think what it's saying is they bought the doll, brought it to the property, and the ghost attached itself to the doll because it was a 7-year-old girl. So the 7-year-old girl was acting out her hauntings through the doll.
Got it.
Um. Okay, Higgins had supposedly died on the land where the apartment stood. The Warren family also got involved, determining that a demonic presence was in fact behind the doll. They performed a blessing in the residence before taking Annabelle off the young woman's hands. Annabelle has since become a permanent and prominent fixture in the Warrens, Connecticut Occult Museum. I think that if it's a demonically possessed doll, and I've never been to the Warrens Museum, so I don't know. But I feel like it should be able to get out of the glass cage that it's in.
Well, yeah. The glass cage shouldn't stop anything from happening. At the very least. But didn't they have it blessed, and isn't there something like crosses or something in the case?
I don't know. I've seen pictures of the case, and it looks like a glass case with a sign, warning, positively do not open.
Yeah, and the cross over it. Yeah, there's a cross over the case.
Okay.
But for some reason, I thought that they had like something blessed and put in the case with the doll.
Maybe.
I don't know. But in general, yeah, I think
I just feel like if there was something that had enough power to move a doll around and cause physical harm, I don't know if the blessings have weakened its abilities. I don't know. I just feel like the doll would, at the very least, the attachment should then come off the doll and then it would haunt the Warrens or still haunt the people in the apartment.
Someone in the chat is saying that in several interviews with Lorraine, she said Warner Brothers purchased all the stories from movies and TV. And and I'm going to come in with that whole Bombshell thing later, and that her writer for that contract is very interesting. They're going to see that she had a writer put into that contract, which, for those of you who don't know, means we can do this contract. However, this and this and this and this and this has to be done or not done for me to sign this contract. And I think you're going to find that very interesting.
You want me to move on?
Yeah, if you want to, go ahead.
Okay. Did anyone else have anything to say in the chat about Annabelle?
There's someone named Triple J 1313.
Oh, I wonder who that is.
Yeah, I wonder. And he wants you to know, Jory, that the glass case is blessed, and there's crosses all over the basement because to like stop the objects from having power.
I would just feel like an attachment would then detach itself from that object and go somewhere else then.
Yeah. Well, I don't know any demons anymore, so I can't call one up and ask.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm not an expert on demon behavior.
Is anyone?
I do have a brother who's pretty crazy, but I don't know if he's, someone I can ask about this stuff.
At least not
Uncle
anymore.
Mike. That's for you, Jeremy. Mike, I brought him in.
He's too busy pissing on our graves.
Yeah.
Uncle Mike's story.
Jeremy's like, I love it when you bring Uncle Mike into your stories. There are a lot of stories that Uncle Mike can be brought into.
Oh,
okay.
Yes. Anyways, number 4. This was actually outside of the Amityville. This was one of my first hauntings that I had heard of involving the Warrens. But just in particular, it was one of the first big hauntings that I ever actually read and watched. The Haunting in Connecticut.
Chupacabra.
In 1986, Carmen and Al... Oh, here comes my inability to read again. Snedeker.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's a weird name. Yeah.
rented a home in Southington, Connecticut, to be closer to the hospital where their son was receiving treatment. Unfortunately, the family had little knowledge about the resident's strange and gruesome past. The former funeral home came complete with the remnants of a mortuary in the basement and a graveyard outside.
I love that.
I would live there.
I know, I would too.
And here's my mortuary, guys. Come on, lay down this slab. Let me perform an autopsy on you.
Do you remember that when you were little, I used to take you to that old 1700s cemetery that was overgrown and off in the woods?
Oh, down the road from Nana's
From my
house?
mom's house? Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
we would go on field trips to that cemetery.
Yeah.
And that was just fascinating to me.
Yeah. One
time I
spooky.
stepped on a grave and my foot went through. That was less fascinating. I know, I didn't like that. But it was really interesting.
Did you look down and see Michael Jackson's red leather jacket?
You know what I didn't look down. I seriously was like, nope. No. I'm not going to do it.
Because this is Thriller. Thriller 2, Thriller in the Great Northwest.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Hey, Maya, can you look up the answer to that question that was just asked in the chat?
What question?
Did the Warrens make any money off the first Amityville horror book?
Off the first Amityville horror book?
Yeah, because their names were used in it as investigators.
Did they write the book or were they referenced in the book?
They were referenced in it, so they probably didn't.
They probably didn't. While she's doing that, upon moving in, their eldest son began seeing terrifying visions of ghosts. The family would uncover the existence of toe tags in the house regularly. Oof. Lights often flickered, dishes would shake, the smell of decaying flesh hovered, and reportedly water would, on occasion, turn blood red.
Yeah.
Carmen and Al even alleged that the demons... I'm sorry. I'm such a terrible person. Okay, I'm going to try and read this. Carmen and Al even alleged that the demons had sodomized them during their 2-year period there.
You're laughing at that? Hey, my scariest movie was I can't even think of the name right now.
The Entity?
The Entity, thank you. And that scarred me for life. Like, I've been afraid of demons.
I jumped from lights turning on and off to being sodomized. I'm sorry. It's just too drastic of a jump for me. Boy, those lights sure are flickering really hard. Oh no, not again.
That escalated.
Yeah. Wow, that escalated quickly. Hey, you like how I could turn these lights on and off? Wait till you see what I can do next.
No, it's so bad. I can't laugh about that.
Here's a Bloody Mary. You're going to need a couple of these.
This is wrong.
Is this Bloody Mary drugged? I'm feeling a little woozy.
I hope so.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry, listeners of the podcast. Mom and I are just reaching that dark place, and we got to get ourselves back in focus. Anyways, the Snedekers asked Ed and Lorraine Warren for help, and the investigators attributed the hauntings to the ghosts of those who were brought to the funeral home. According to the Warrens, the morticians partook in unsavory activities with the dead bodies. Well, no wonder they were sodomizing.
Necrophilia. They accused them of necrophilia.
The ghosts were just repaying what they had done to them.
Every single podcast comes to necrophilia at some point.
I'm seeing a pattern here. None of us should work in a mortuary. I'm just throwing that out there.
I agree.
After a 2-year stay, the Snedeker's family moved out. Like the Perrin story, the Snedeker's haunting was immortalized in film.
Okay, are you done with that part, or can I add something?
Go ahead, Ned.
Are you done with it?
I said add. Let's go.
Okay. The Warrens claimed that was a bunch of bullcrap, that movie, that story. That the man who wrote the book came to them and said, their stories don't add up. There's no two people telling the same story.
Mm-hmm.
And Ed said that they were crazy. And just write down what they had, the Warrens had noted as happening, and then just throw in whatever else to make it scary. So that's why I call that the chupacabra of the real stories turned into movies, because most of it didn't happen.
It's tough because it's easy to say, well, the parents were. I think you and I talked about, or maybe you had said it in the previous podcast about how the mom would say she would manipulate the kids into believing the house was haunted to get attention to herself or to get attention to the media or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you listen to the kids talking, the eldest son who had cancer, he eventually passed away a few years ago because his cancer came back. But he had recorded himself kind of doing like a testimonial because he knew he was going to pass away, and he believed that everything that happened in that house was 100% true.
Really?
And his brother has done interviews, at least on TV, where he said, like, I saw things that, like, they saw blood dripping from a wall, not just a wall, but they were crawling through a vent, and the wall had blood coming out of it. So they
said that the blood came out of the wall because that is one specific thing that the Warrens said never happened. But they said it did.
The youngest son was telling a story about how him and his brother, and I think there was another brother, were playing this hide and seek game, and they had found this opening that led through this small vent-like area, but it was still attached to the wall. And when they were crawling through it, they started to see blood form out of the wall and start to drip down it. So I kind of want to lean more towards the kids and believing that maybe some of the hauntings might have been exaggerated, but these kids truly 100% believed everything they saw. So that one's a tough one for me.
Okay. All right. Well, we got another one?
Yeah. This one's called The South End Werewolf. Perhaps one of the more unusual cases. Okay, I would say they were all unusual, but let's go with that.
Yeah.
For Ed and Lorraine Warren's case list, this investigation took the Warrens out of the United States to a seaside town in Essex, England.
Essex?
Essex.
Okay.
There, a man by the name of Bill Ramsey was believed to be possessed by a demon that manifested as a wolf. Growing up, Ramsey was a normal, happy boy. One day, though, at the young age of 9, he suddenly began exhibiting inhuman qualities. Reportedly, while playing outside in his backyard, Ramsey felt a frigid cold overtake him, and his nostrils were overcome with an awful stench before he flew into a rage, uprooting a fence still attached, and gnawing on its wire meshing. Dear God. Why wasn't this kid in any strongman contests? He would have won. Or, like helping out with like the neighbors.
Stop.
Hey Billy, come over here. Can you help me get this plank in the ground? I'm trying to build my shed. I don't feel like using any of this material. Help me out here.
You can't laugh at demons. Demons will sodomize you.
I'm just saying, if this kid can uproot fence posts, he can just as easily drive them into the ground.
Anyway,
and that's great
moving
for
along.
business. Ramsey eventually grew up, became a loving husband and father of 3, and was incident-free until the 1960s.
He was incident-free.
Yeah,
until the
1960s.
And then it started happening again?
I'm trying to get to that part.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. My bad.
The early years of his marriage were plagued by nightmares, cold sweats, and waking up to the pants of a wild animal. Oh,
marriage will do that to you.
As in the way he was breathing, right? I still get cold. Which he soon realized were coming from him. Oh, she's in the other room. She's going to kill me. In the 1980s, Bill would reportedly feel overcome by the sensations he had as a child while hanging out with friends, and even once while doing a citizen's arrest. At one point, he attacked a friend in a car on their way from a pub and manhandled police in intense altercations on several occasions. In the midst of this, Ramsey spent several stints in the hospital, all featuring the same symptoms of rage, inhuman strength, bared teeth, growling, hunched shoulders, and hands curled like claws. In an interview with the Warrens about their experience with Ramsey, Ed Warren stated that Ramsey would ask to be locked up in a jail cell for his protection and the protection of the public. When the Warrens got wind of Ramsey's situation, they asked him to their Connecticut home, where Bishop Robert McKenna would perform a recorded exorcism on Ramsey. And it ends there.
So, this was a werewolf demon?
They say that he was, scrolling back up, he was believed to be possessed by a demon that manifested as a wolf. I don't think, if you wanna just go into believing in spirits, I think I would rule out a demon that manifested as a wolf and just land on perhaps it was just the spirit of a wolf. Maybe.
Like a skinwalker kind of thing?
Well, skinwalkers aren't technically spirits.
Well,
I would, because the Native American cultures like to talk about how they have like a spirit animal.
Yeah.
So maybe, if you think of it that way, maybe this guy was possessed by a spirit animal, not so much we don't really know anything about demons. But what would a demon get out of just pretending to manifest as a wolf and make this guy tear up a fucking fence? Excuse my language. and just attack people in an animal-like pattern. It doesn't fit the pattern of what we've recorded as demonic possessions. So,
right.
You could. A lot of people would go into, oh, maybe he had a mental illness, but it doesn't account for his sudden increase in strength that he had. I mean, he ripped a fence post at 9 years old out of the ground with the fence still attached.
Started chewing on the middle.
And started chewing on the middle.
Seems weird.
It feels like it. I don't know. Maybe you have a difference of opinion, Mom. But it kind of feels like maybe it would just be a spirit animal possessing him.
I don't really think I have an opinion on that. That's unusual. I really don't. I really wouldn't even know where to start. As far as the mental illness thing goes, yeah, I think that wouldn't have anything to do with a small child ripping a fence post out and eating it. That doesn't
And
make sense.
why would he go in between so many years in between incidences? What would be the trigger for both?
Yeah. Well, he got married.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. That's really weird. That's very weird. He was the werewolf in London.
Yeah. We should have that song in the background. Oh,
yeah, we should.
Werewolves in London.
That's very weird. I don't know what to say about that. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Sorry. You got another one?
Yeah. So this is the last one on this list.
Okay.
And it's the trial of, and I hope I say this part right, the trial of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson.
Okay, aren't you gonna do the Smurl family too?
I
have the Smurl family information if you don't.
I can pull it up. I'm just reading off of this list of people. I can pull up the Smurl family. Okay. In this landmark trial, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were called to testify on behalf of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, the first known case in the United States to use "the devil made me do it" defense.
This is the devil in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Case. Okay.
On the evening of February 16th, 1981, 19-year-old Johnson, engaged to Debbie Glatzel, and out for dinner with her, their landlord Alan Bono and others stabbed Bono multiple times using a pocket knife. Johnson would plead not guilty by possession, a defense founded on Johnson's relationship with his soon-to-be wife's younger brother, David. In the summer of 1980, David woke to what he described as a man with big black eyes, a thin face with animal features and jagged teeth, pointed ears, horns, and hooves. The demon's description mirrors the creature from horror hit Insidious, and apparently scared David so much that Debbie turned to Arnie for help. Johnson couldn't find a reasonable explanation for David's bruises or scratches, so the family pivoted to a priest. That supposedly only angered the entity more, causing it to make David hiss, speak in multiple voices, and quote Paradise Lost. The Warrens were brought in. In an interview with People magazine, Lorraine stated that, while Ed interviewed the boy, I saw a black, misty form next to him, which told me we were dealing with something of a negative nature. Soon the child was complaining that invisible hands were choking him, and there were red marks on him. He said that he had the feeling of being hit. I want to go back for just a second and say that the creature was described closely to what we saw in Insidious, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That would have scared the balls off of me, because when I saw that movie, it creeped me out. Like, that creature was seriously weird.
I have not seen that movie.
You haven't seen Insidious?
No.
Okay. Well, podcast is over. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We got to get Exlite to see this movie. It's a good movie. What are you doing?
You know, I don't like scary movies.
Oh my gosh! The guy who plays Ed Warren in the Conjuring movies is in Insidious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he plays the father of the child that the movie's focused on.
Is it psychologically scary or like bloody scary?
It's a ghost story.
Okay, so more psychologically scary?
Yeah, it's so the premise of the film is that the boy has this ability to wander into the land of the dead while he sleeps. Oh. And that extra what's the word I'm looking for? That form of his body becomes trapped by a demon, and he's using the boy's energy. He's feeding off of the boy's energy. So they bring in a psychic eventually once they figure out that their house is being haunted by this demon to help get this boy from the land of the dead back to the land of the living.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses one of the creepiest songs that I've ever heard in my life. Have you heard of that singer Tiny Tim?
Yeah.
He does that Tiptoe Through the Tulip song.
Yeah.
That's the song that accompanies that demon.
Oh, really?
And it's creepy AF.
Tiptoe through the tulips.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. I can only think of that song in two variations. That movie and SpongeBob SquarePants. and both ways it disturbs me greatly. Anyways.
You're cutting out.
I don't know what to tell you, Mom. I'm just using
your voice.
This. Jeremy says it just might be Skype.
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but you just cut out when you were saying Jeremy. You went Jeremy.
Jeremy says it might be Skype when we were skipping out earlier.
Okay.
So anyways, the Warrens supposedly worked with the Diocese of Bridgeport and 4 priests who were brought in to exorcise more than 40 demons from David.
Wow.
40? This kid had a party going on.
In an apartment. Did he charge
Come
rent?
on in, guys. This is the spot. Yeah. Did you have a bouncer? Someone standing outside with a rope? Sorry.
Apparently not.
40 demons are already here. It's filled to capacity. The diocese has only admitted to investigating the Glatzel case, but allegedly the event saw David return to normal.
Well,
Arnie, however, became their legend. What's that?
Go ahead.
Arnie, however, became their alleged new target. After moving in with Debbie and going to dinner at the bar with Bono, a fight between the two older men broke out, and Johnson stabbed Bono. Johnson's defense didn't hold up in court, and
Johnson
he was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter. Yeah. He was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter, serving out only 5 years of his initially longer sentence. This guy served only 5 years for stabbing a guy to death?
Yeah. And his defense was that he was possessed by a devil, or a demon.
Yeah, possessed by a demon.
5 years.
He only served 5 years. Wow. Good behavior, I guess. Well, Johnson, you haven't stabbed anybody here. Go on and get out there, you big silly goose.
Oh my God! I'm gonna take a note of that in case I ever need to use that. I was possessed by demons defense. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you about the Smurl family real quick, okay? Unless you want to go dive into that.
It's fine if you want me to. I can.
Okay, you go.
Just give me the spelling for the name.
SMURL.
SMURL?
Yep.
Okay. Give me a second here, folks. Doing very specific journalistic research here. Okay. The Smurl haunting refers to claims made by Jack and Janet Smurl of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, United States, who allege that a demon inhabited their home between 1974 and 1989.
Oh, can I just say something real fast?
The Smurl...
About the guy who was possessed and he claimed, the devil made him do it.
Yeah.
We have someone in chat who says that Johnson's girlfriend, and who's currently his wife, claimed that Bono had tried to rape her. So maybe that's why it was only 5 years. Maybe it was like a little akin to a self-defense sort of a thing.
Huh.
Which I can see that.
If that's true, then sounds like he got what he deserved.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Smurls claims gained wide press attention and were investigated by demonologists who encouraged the family's supernatural beliefs, and clergy, psychologists, and scientific skeptics who offered
You're cutting out really bad, baby.
scientific explanations. Where did I leave off?
When you said clergy.
Okay. Clergy, psychologists, and scientific skeptics who offered more scientific explanations. The Smurls' version of their story was the subject of a 1986 paperback titled The Haunted, and in 1991, made-for-TV movie of the same name, released by 20th Century Fox. The Smurls claim that beginning in 1974, their double-block home located at 328 Chase Street in the city of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, was disturbed by a demon that caused loud noises and bad odors, threw their dog into a shook their mattress, pushed one of their daughters down a flight of stairs, and physically and sexually assaulted Jack on several occasions. Dear God.
Yeah, it says, on one I'm reading, it says that it sexually assaulted Jack and Janet.
Wow.
What is the deal with these demon things? What is your deal? It's just not okay.
Wow. In 1986, the family brought in a pair of demonologists, Ed and Lorraine Warren. According to Ed Warren, the demon that inhabited the Smurls' home was very powerful, and that it shook mirrors and furniture after they tried to persuade it to leave by playing. I'm sorry, am I still here?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out. I think it feels like it's your internet connection, maybe. Or the Skype's cutting you in and out.
Yeah, I heard myself cut out for a second.
Yeah. Am I still here?
Well, it went like really, really quiet, and I was like, oh God, now I'm booted. Anyways. It shook mirrors and furniture after they tried to persuade it to leave by playing religious music and praying. Warren claimed he felt a drop in temperature and saw a dark mass form in the home. And the demon once left a message on a mirror telling him to get out. After months of investigation, Warren alleged that he had a number of audio tapes containing knocking and rapping caused by the demon. I would say that wouldn't be submissible as evidence, just because they're audio tapes and anybody can just knock and rap.
Right.
Professor Paul Kurtz of State University of New York at Buffalo, and then chairman of the Committee for a Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. Well, that's a mouthful. Said the Warrens weren't objective, independent, or impartial investigators, and characterized the Smurls' claims as a hoax, a charade, a ghost story. Kurt said that the family's claims were possibly due to delusions, hallucinations, or brain impairment.
And the whole family?
Yeah.
See, that's the stuff that irritates me.
That they submit themselves, right? The whole entire family had one
They all had the same brain impairment. All of a sudden. Yeah. One hallucination.
The same hallucination together.
Yeah.
How do you all hallucinate being sodomized? Just out of curiosity.
Science tries to fit it into a box, and if it can't, then it has to be mental illness, an hallucination, and here you go, brain impairment. Well, like on my very first podcast, I think it was maybe our second podcast, where I was telling Rob that my dad was telling his doctor that he sees shadow people, and his doctor told him it was his diabetes. Like, what? I don't.
Okay.
How's that even? How do you even come to that conclusion? I don't get it.
I don't know. That's awesome, though.
I know.
Let's see here. Hallucinations or brain impairment, and advise that they submit themselves to psychiatric and psychological examinations. Jack Smurl told a newspaper reporter he had surgery to remove water from his brain in 1983 because he had been experiencing short-term memory loss due to a case of meningitis in his youth. Allentown psychologist Robert Gordon commented that people often look at demonology to explain many tensions that they experience as individuals and within their families.
In that movie, apparently, Kevin Bacon was a star of that movie. And
really?
Yeah. And the comment is, I've always wondered if the Warrens brought in their own demons for some of their cases. Huh. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah. You would think that they would have had a few. And especially when I get to talking later, you're going to think they had their own demons. I think that's possible.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I could see that. So the rest of it is just a lot of people saying it was fake, it wasn't true, and then supposedly the Smurls weren't looking for any sort of media attention on them. They were getting tired of it, and then just a few months later, they came out with the book that they co-wrote with the Warrens. So.
Oh. Well, I'm telling you something. If you are being haunted by a demon who is sexually assaulting you, the least you can do is write a book and make some money off it. Right? I'm saying you go.
I don't work for free. All right.
No. Oh, so wrong. Okay. So, I can't get past this. All right. So, do you want me to start talking about some other parts of the Warrens' lives?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, here we go. Okay, you guys, it's time to buckle in a little bit. Okay, what I'm going to do is just right now talk about a couple of skeptics and what they wrote about them, and then I'm going to go into a part of the Warren story that I had never heard, although it is public, and did come out in the public in 2015. Although it was shocking, to say the least, to me. And what?
I'm sorry. Did you want me to bring up the Union Graveyard, or do you want me to wait?
Oh, Ed wrote a book, correct?
Correct.
And this was without Lorraine. Is that correct? Yeah, it was just him. I saw an interview with him, and he took his van out to the cemetery and stayed out there for 7 nights waiting to see. So what was the name of the book?
Give me 1 second here. Graveyard, True Hauntings from an Old New England Cemetery. It says it's actually from Ed and Lorraine Warren. So maybe he did the investigation, but they wrote the book.
Yeah, that's probably true. And in this book, he claims to have seen the White Lady. Correct?
Yeah, so he went to a place called Union Cemetery in Connecticut. And this cemetery is famous locally because it's haunted by the figure of a white woman or a white lady.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what I've seen in it is a lot of people saying, "Oh, the white lady this and the white lady that." So, since they live in Connecticut, it would only make sense that they would be attracted to something local like that.
Right. I wonder if that's called the Union Cemetery, if it has anything to do with Union soldiers.
Um,
But I don't know how old it is.
I can look that up.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to start talking about some things that some skeptics have written about them. And there's a lot of skeptics out there, so I'm just going to read a couple of skeptics and what they had to say, and then if you guys feel like you need to read more on skeptics about the Warrens, then you can feel free to go ahead and do that. According to a 1997 interview with the Connecticut Post, Steve Novella and Perry DeAngelis investigated the Warrens for the New England Skeptical Society. They found the couple to be pleasant people, but their claims of demons and ghosts to be, quote, at best as tellers of meaningless ghost stories and at worst, dangerous frauds. They took the $12.50 tour and looked at all the evidence the Warrens had for spirits and ghosts. They watched the videos and looked at the best evidence the Warrens had. And they were quoted saying, their conclusion, it's all blarney. They found common errors with flash photography and nothing evil in the artifacts the Warrens had collected, which I can just say this as a side note. How do you know you didn't find anything evil in there? I mean, you can't make an artifact just do tricks. You know what I mean? So that part is like, you're not going to see Annabelle crawl up your body and strangle you. But anyway, it says they're not doing good scientific investigation. They have a predetermined conclusion which they adhere to literally and religiously. And I talked about that earlier when they said that they didn't have a predetermined conclusion, that they would go into a building or a house or whatever people were claimed was being haunted, and that they would use police officers and, I mean, what was the rest? Doctors, college students, you know, all the stuff to help support their investigation. The one thing they didn't use is a scientist. So Lorraine Warren said that the problem with Perry and Steve is that they don't base anything on God. So because they weren't looking at the evidence through a religious perception, that they weren't going to believe it. You have to be religious. And Ed Warren was often saying that about people and his investigation, that if you weren't Catholic or if you didn't believe in God, then you would not believe their evidence, which, from a skeptic point of view, would seem pretty shady, I think. That,
yeah,
you know, to write it off, oh, well, you don't see a demon in that picture because you're not believing in God. That doesn't make any sense. There's a demon or there's not. So Lorraine Warren said that I got that already. The reporter says that it takes work to do solid critical thinking, to actually employ your intellectual faculties and come to a conclusion that actually reflects reality. That's what scientists do every day, and that's what skeptics advocate. And I can say this, as many experiences as I have had, and I have been physically harmed. I have had my family seeing me physically being scratched with seemingly nothing there to scratch me. I am still a skeptic because I want to see the proof. Back in the old days, oh my goodness, really, Tracy? Back when like ghost hunters and those types of things started, what was the show that had the guys that used to be plumbers?
Ghost hunters.
That was Ghost Hunters?
Yeah, they worked for. Oh no, I don't even remember who they worked for, but they were plumbers. Their day jobs were plumbers, and then because they did all their investigations for free, they didn't believe that investigating people's homes should be something that you make money off of because
Yes.
it's something that's personal.
Well,
So
I think that
at night, yeah.
Sorry, I'm bumping into you.
I was just saying at night they would investigate and help people experiencing paranormal activity.
Okay, so
Roto-Rooter, that's who they work for.
yeah, Roto-Rooter, that's right. So when I would watch them, it was always so frustrating to me that everything that happened was off camera. Oh, did you just see that? A spirit showed up. Did you see that? No, we didn't catch it on film. I would, if you remember, I would always say to you, why don't they have a camera on their head so that when they turn their head, we can see what they're seeing? Now, of course, you would have a GoPro, right?
Right.
And that always frustrated me that those shows were at that point always doing that. Everything that happened, oh,
Right.
I have a cold feeling. We were supposed to take your word for it. They didn't test the air around them, It was very frustrating because I don't want to take your word for it that you have a cold feeling. I want to see some scientific evidence. And then you move into something like Zach Bagans and how he does it now with the points, where you can see like a body moving, those stick figure points that they have. I'm sorry. I'm not a professional ghost hunter. And to be able to measure the temperature around somebody.
I think they call that the Kinect. It was a design for Microsoft to read your bodies so you could play a video game hands-free.
Right.
And they used it to see if they could collect data on the paranormal, and they were actually able to map figures using the Kinect camera. I think they call it now an SLX camera, maybe. But yeah, that's the premise of it.
Yeah. So, ghost investigations, demon investigations, entity, spirit, whatever you want to call it, those have come a long way. And a problem with Ed and Lorraine Warren was they would claim to have pictures and videos of demons and ghosts, but they would not release them to scientists to go over them. And I don't know if they thought that it was because the scientists would go at it in a way that would try to debunk them rather than trying to support their work. So maybe that was it. But when you do something like that, it automatically looks like you're trying to hide something. If, I have on my YouTube channel, I have put a picture of, and I think it's like, is this a demon caught on tape, on film or something like that? A picture of something standing next to my own daughter, and asked people, if this isn't a demon, if this isn't some sort of entity, tell me what it is. Take this picture and tell me what it is. And I think that, because the Warrens were so secretive, that it makes people skeptical. So, in an article for the Sydney Morning Herald that examined whether supernatural films are really based on true events, that investigations were used as evidence to the contrary. Their novella is quoted as saying, they claim to have scientific evidence, which does indeed prove the existence of these things. And that sounds like a testable claim, right? I have scientific evidence. That's a testable claim. And he wrote that we can sink our investigative teeth into. But what we found was a very nice couple who seemed genuinely sincere, but that did not have any compelling evidence. And then the article for the Sydney Morning Chronicle said that they wanted to make it clear that they didn't think that the Warrens were meant to cause harm to anybody, which, I don't think that they did either. But they did caution that claims like the Warrens serve to reinforce and confuse the public about legitimate scientific methodology. And I would agree with that. And it wasn't just in 1952. This was, up into the 2000s that they would not release their information. So I have a webpage that talks about 10 times that the Warrens' claims of hauntings could be looked at suspiciously. They were talking about the Amityville Horror and the Less family and the DeFeo family. And it says that the Warrens participated in a psychic slumber party, so to speak, some 2 months after the Lutzes abandoned their new home in the middle of the night. And a camera crew had followed the Lutzes when they left. Lorraine said that she sensed a great malevolence in the house and that it was infested with demonic entities. A photograph was allegedly captured of one such entity, though people who have seen it said that it was likely one of the crew members. And that was the only real solid evidence that the Warrens gave through their Amityville Horror investigation. And that really catapulted them into fame, right? But when you only, I guess the hard part is that when you only have a picture that to everybody else it looks like it was a crew member, I guess that puts that whole investigation sort of up to being questionable. Hold on a second. So then they were talking about Annabelle and how Ed and Lorraine took the doll back to their museum and put it on display and encased it in a glass cabinet. Before Ed died, he would apparently warn museum visitors that the last man to mock Annabelle died in a motorcycle crash. But he didn't provide any names of this man or any evidence to support this claim. So nobody could look it up in the newspaper. Nobody could talk to this man's family. And that goes again to, if you do have something that's a haunted object, don't expand on stories, but not give proof. Because that really goes back and reflects on the original object, which is Annabelle. It reflects that if you have to, for some reason, make up a story about what happened to somebody who touched Annabelle, and that turns out to maybe be a stretch of the truth, then maybe Annabelle is too. Does that make sense?
Can I insert something in that part of it?
Yeah.
So, while Ed Warren probably didn't give any of that information whatsoever, there was an episode of Ghost Adventures about a season or two ago where he had Ed and Lorraine Warren's son-in-law bring the Annabelle doll to their museum in Las Vegas. And he actually tells the actual full story of the person that provoked the Annabelle doll and then died in a motorcycle accident.
And does he name him?
It's if my memory serves me correctly, I don't think he outright gives a full name, but I think he gives enough information for you to be able to find this person in that local obituary. If you were to do your own research, but he gives like a more detailed account of what happened the day that person instigated the Annabelle doll and then passing away shortly afterwards from the accident. And I would have to go back and watch the episode. Anybody in the chat can go back and watch it. It was, I think it was a Halloween episode where Zach had like psychics come in and perform different rituals in his museum, and then he had their son-in-law come in with the Annabelle doll, which Zach Bagans ended up touching, which caused the entire investigation to shut down, and the son-in-law to take Annabelle and leave the museum because you're not allowed to touch it. So, but I do believe he gives a more detailed story of the account, but I can see why up until, when Ed Warren passed away, if he's not giving you specific details about a motorcycle accident, just saying, oh, the last person who provoked it passed away from a motorcycle accident. Okay, well, what else can you tell us about it? If he's not giving you that information, I can understand, like, okay, whatever. That you just trying to tell me don't touch it, or you trying to tell me not to talk to it. Like, just say that.
Right. Another thing about the haunting in Connecticut that the Warrens left out of their investigation and their writings about it was that the whole family was allegedly on drugs and alcohol. And the parents were alcoholics, the kids were on drugs. And so that could maybe be a reason for why, like if you're on drugs, a reason for why maybe they saw something. And, that family was accused of trying to be like the Lutzes and trying to make a story out of a haunting. And, I don't know if that's true or not, but people are very, very skeptical about that. And like I said last week, if you're gonna talk about a haunted house, you might as well use a house that was a funeral home and a mortuary, right?
Well, that's where I would start.
I know, but leaving out the part about the family having drug issues and whatnot, makes people, skeptical. Of course, the Enfield poltergeist, the Warrens have been accused of having, the most famous picture is the girl who's flying up in the air. Well, you can go look at the memes about this particular case and see her start at the front of her bed and sort of hop off of the bed. That it really looks like it was set up to snap a picture right in the middle of the air. And then
doesn't look like any paranormal activity to me.
Yeah.
It looks like a girl jumping in the air.
And then one of the girls in the case said that about 2% that they did make up stuff. That the girls, once they started getting attention, they did start making up stuff. She said they only made up about 2% of the stuff, but once you start saying you did make up stuff, and this was Janet, who was the one who was levitating. Go ahead.
If I was a part of a famous haunting investigation like them, I would not, in any way, shape, or form, even if I did make up 2% of it, I would not admit it.
Never. No.
Because now just admitting it alone already erases any integrity of the case at all. You could say, oh, I only made up 2%. Okay, well, you have just admitted that you made up some of the stuff that happened to you. Therefore, how can we believe any of it happened?
Right. Yeah.
You take that to the grave because you want people to believe it. because it actually did happen to you. The moment you say, well, I might have exaggerated this and this because I was getting more attention. Okay, well, now I don't believe you.
Right. Right. That's part of the problem with that. That I don't. But here's the worst part. So, about the contracts that Lorraine signed regarding any movies being made. The writers that she had in the contracts listed things that could not be put in them. And these things that she listed are unusual for someone to put in a contract. And they include the films couldn't show her husband or her engaging in any crime, which includes sex with a minor, child pornography, prostitution, or sexual assault. Neither the husband nor the wife could be depicted as participating in an extramarital sexual relationship. Talent attorney Jill Smith says that she has never seen a specific language barring such depictions in her career. And she says, I have done deals which prevent depictions of certain specific types of odious behavior, which are not related to the underlying story, which typically the person is not known to have participated in. So if there's no reason for these to come up, to list them in your writer as things that they can't put in, well, we're going to talk about why that might be. So there's a woman. Her name is Judith Penny. And this came out during a time where, during The Conjuring, the production company was being sued by a producer and a writer, which said that the writer in particular said that the Warrens had taken the story for The Conjuring from a book he wrote about the Warrens' investigation into The Conjuring. So that is their story. So that's weird. But during the course of this this lawsuit, they had somebody who was willing to give some very damaging testimony against the Warrens. And that is this. Judith Penny, who is now 70 years old, said in a sworn declaration that she lived in the Warrens' house as Ed's lover for 4 decades, and that her relationship with Ed began when she was 15 years old. The studio had been sent a warning that this woman was making this testimony. And they didn't deny that it was the truth, but they did say that the producer and the writer were trying to damage the profits of the movie. Ed and Lorraine Warren, according to them and their lawyer, said that they opened their home to Judy when she was 18 because she had lived a life of childhood neglect. And Ed and Lorraine Warren would often refer to her as their niece. In Penny's legal declaration, she claims that she and Ed began a sexual affair, and that she moved into the Warrens' house and continued to have the sexual affair, and that Lorraine was well aware of it. There is proof in a police report Because in 1963, a concerned neighbor or acquaintance called the police to report that Ed Warren was in a relationship with a minor. And the police came and they arrested Judy. And she, the child who Ed was sleeping with, she was court ordered to attend a delinquent youth program for a month. And the person that would pick her up from school and take her to this delinquent youth program was Ed Warren. It is all kinds of effed up that they arrested the child that was being reported to be in this situation. The Warrens had a daughter whose name was Judy as well, and their daughter didn't live with them. They lived with a grandmother. So this Judith was the only girl in the home. She alleges that in 1978, and I believe she was 37 or something at the time, she became pregnant with Ed's child, and Lorraine told her to have an abortion to avoid public scandal, which could be the end of their successful careers. And so she did. She claims that Ed was abusive to Lorraine, physically and emotionally, that Ed would slap her across the face, and they would get into such huge fights that she thought that they would kill each other. She claims that her relationship ended with Ed in 2003. And she got married, and she remained close with Ed, not Lorraine, until he passed away. She claimed that in his book about the cemetery, about the white lady, that Ed... Now, I looked all over for this picture of what Ed claims to have seen in the cemetery, and I can't find anything except for a picture that also claims that there was another investigator that had investigated the same cemetery, and it's unclear whether this photo is from Ed or from this other investigator, so I don't want to use it because I don't want to use something that's unclear. But even if you did see it, and you can go look it up, it just seems like a smoke machine. I mean, in one part of this picture down the very corner, you can actually see like this smoke shooting out of this headstone. It looks very foggy. I can't see a picture of a white lady, but I did see a video on YouTube of Ed being interviewed by his son-in-law, in which he does state that he did catch the white lady on film, and Judith Penny claims that what he had her do was dress up and go out there so he could get a real blurry picture of her as being the white lady, which puts that whole book into question, obviously. Now, this woman is 70, and this is sort of funny that this is her statement. She says, "As I'm older now, I can't even fathom why Lorraine let me stay there." Now, keeping in mind, she was in this relationship for 4 decades until she was 55 years old. Yeah, she's older now, 70. She said, "Lots of times I think about, why did I do this? Why did I screw my life up like this? Sometimes I get angry thinking about it and how so much was taken away from me." And I wanted to talk about that part in particular because I think if we're going to talk about the Warrens and give facts about the Warrens and their claimed strong religious beliefs, and the fact that they claimed if you didn't believe their evidence, it was because you don't know God or you weren't seeing it through the eyes of God, and that's how they would dismiss you. and your skepticism, then part of their life that is easily found and was recorded during a legal deposition is that Ed had molested a 15-year-old girl and then continued that relationship, and Lorraine forced her to have an abortion. And I think that needs to be part of the story as well. Now, I'm not going to say that negates their work. That's not the point of the information. I'm not going to say that now you can throw all of Ed and Lorraine's work away. I don't know. I don't know anything about Ed and Lorraine's work other than what they've told us and what the skeptics are skeptical about, or how this could influence it, all except for her dressing up as the woman in white, lady in white. But I do think it has something to say about the lengths that the Warrens could go to on moral grounds, and that the fact that she had to have a contract signed that said she wouldn't sign it unless it didn't depict Ed as, and I want to read this again, her or her husband engaging in crimes including sex with minors, child pornography, prostitution, sexual assault. Then neither the husband or wife could be depicted as participating in an extramarital sexual relationship. And keep in mind, too, that this writer was made before this lawsuit. This was when she made the deal with the companies to sell her rights to the stories. So it seems proactive that she would put this writer in. Otherwise, why would it match up so well? But like I said, this is something that I will leave up to you to decide if it affects your view of the Warrens or their work. But I do believe it was necessary to include, because this podcast is about the Warrens, not just about their work. What do you think, Jory?
It's I don't know. That's a very unfortunate part of their lives. I don't understand. It's something that's hard to grasp that Lorraine would allow this affair to happen in her own home for 40 years. If it's true, it's sad, and it does cast what is already a shadow on their work, a much bigger shadow, especially her claim of her being the white lady that Ed Warren caught in the cemetery. But personal life and professional life can be two different things, and I just don't think in a 50-year career of doing paranormal investigations that every drop of it is a hoax. There has to be true evidence there. So for me, I just say it's a shame. It does kind of feel like a product of their time, that early time, the 40s and 50s, the man was still very much the man of the house. He was the one that the woman was still, I don't want to say submissive, but he was the man.
Right.
And so that was a product of their time. I'm not condoning it at all. I'm just saying, you're never going to have a hero, a celebrity that's going to be 100% squeaky clean. Everybody's going to have a dark something. So while we can look at it and be like, well, that's a shame, at the same time, maybe not all of their work. I don't know if you can find 100% in 50 years, 100% all true cases of paranormal activity, but they had to have found something out there that shed light, and they paved the path for people who are diligently working on paranormal research to this day. People like Zach Bagans and his crew, people like Jason Haas and his crew, and more and more people to this day now believe in paranormal activity from research that the Warrens contributed to. So unfortunately, it's just that flip of the coin. There's a good side and a bad side.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So.
And I want to add that Judith Penny was not and has not sued the Warrens or the Warren estate for any money. So this apparently, according to the writer of the book, his last name I don't know why, I want to say it was Brittle. And this producer, apparently they didn't like that they were going to portray the Warrens at the end where Ed puts a record on and they dance, and they were saying, this is not, if you're going to do a movie about that has to do with the Warrens, do a movie that has to do with the Warrens. And so they got this testimony, and Warner Brothers went ahead with it regardless. And since she wasn't involved in the lawsuit, they didn't have to deal with that aspect of it.
Right.
So I do think that personal and private, can obviously be completely different, or professional and private. It doesn't make them and their work any less valid, but it does. I just want to say that for me, and I said a couple podcasts ago, if Ed Warren said it, it's true. And if Ed Warren believed this, then I believe it. I still feel that their work was valid. It does make me wonder about the things that they wouldn't give to scientists. But like I said, if they felt that the scientist was really interested in their work just to try and debunk it, they had an agenda and they were going to go for it, then that would make a person less likely to feel free and open to share your work, correct? Yeah. So, I can understand that aspect. It does, to me, tarnish the whole aspect of them being super duper religious Catholics. If that's a reason why you completely believe everything they say, that would be that would tarnish that for me. The fact that if you are a skeptic and they say, well, that's because you don't see it through God like we do, that's I don't know. I just feel like maybe they should have just left that out then.
Mm-hmm.
I think that comes back to bite them in this story. But like we said, in 50 years of paranormal investigation, I think that they deserve the respect that they were groundbreakers and did forge the trail for so many people to come after them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't know. I think you just got to take it all together and then see where you come out at the end of it. Diabolical Witness says, I still consider them almost royalty in this field. And then the CW F1166, they are the benchmark and the standard in the paranormal field. Diabolical Witness, never thought about their moral status. Did think it was odd that the most intense experiences, Ed's wife would not tell him what she saw. Right, which they talk about in The Conjuring. I believe a little bit. She wouldn't tell him. One unknown investigator that worked with the Warrens was Mary Pascarella Downey. Apparently, Judith Penny was taken on the set, and she would answer the phone calls in their home when people would call about their house being haunted and whatnot. So they would also refer to her as their assistant, and there's plenty of people who do say that they spoke with Judith in the home or on investigations she would go to. I don't know. That's one of those things.
Yeah. It's, like I said, it's a shame, but at the same time, professionally speaking, they did a lot of good work that's led to where we are today. So, everybody's got a weird dark side.
Well, I don't think everybody has a I molested a child side.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, as I've gotten older and as time has provided the internet and more access to resources and information, you find more and more that people you looked up to or people who are just generally in the spotlight, you find out, oh, wow, so this is a part of their life too. Interesting. You find out these people are human and they make mistakes.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to take anything that they've done away from them in terms of what they've done in the paranormal research field.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a valid way to see it. If Ed was sexually involved with Penny, that would be a weapon the demonic would use against both Lorraine and Ed. And that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Way to look at that too. Yeah. And that's why I said maybe they did have their own demons, and maybe they could have. I agreed with the commenter. Maybe they could have taken them into investigations, not intentionally, obviously.
As religious as they were, and I'm sure they used plenty of blessings, I can't imagine that they wouldn't come home at some point in their career without some form of an attachment. So.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure there was things that they had to deal with personally with the paranormal that we don't know about.
Oh, yeah, I would think so, too, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't think you can come away from 50 years' worth of work with the paranormal completely unscathed.
Yeah, I mean, just look at, like was that Zach Bagans and his crew. They've been doing this professionally now for 14 years, and they're constantly going to get blessed because Aaron Goodwin lost his marriage because of an attachment. Like, they're constantly having to go get blessed, and they're constantly having to do religious ceremonies because of the things they come home with when they do these investigations.
Right. And if you saw the documentary of the Demon House, what happened with Zach's eyes? Mm-hmm. Which was a real documented event where he had to get surgery on. And you can see now that he has to wear those bottle glasses.
Prism. Yeah, prism glasses.
Yeah, so you can, see that he's wearing them. Yeah, I think that you're going to come away with some stuff. And, who knows? Who knows? But my personal belief is that, well, I think less of them. I think less of them as maybe righteous humans. But as far as their work goes, I think that a lot of it obviously has stood the test of time, and there's been thousands and thousands of people involved with the Warrens who aren't coming out against the Warrens and saying they came to my house and it was all bullshit. So I think as far as the investigator part of them go, I think that even the Skeptic's article said, they, seemed to not want to harm anybody with their, information. It's just so, if you can keep the two things separate, then the two things will be separate.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it all.
All right. Well, if anybody has any questions or comments that they'd still like to put in the chat, we'd love to have that. Mad Meerkat, he's fighting a losing battle with his eyelids. Yes, it's got to be what? Almost 4:30 there?
Yeah, I bet it's late for the UK folks.
Yeah, good night. I'm glad you showed up. Thank you so much. And next week we're going to be doing, like I said, another podcast for conspiracy theories, which are a lot of fun. I think they're a lot of fun. And we all get to learn a little bit of something. And I'd like it if you guys would show up for that. That will be me and Rob and Jory. And maybe I won't talk the entire time. I wish that podcast had gone up on YouTube because it was funny. It was fun. It really was fun. So I think I want to do maybe the moon landing this time. What do you think?
Ooh. But you don't forget your chemtrails.
I still have my information on my chemtrails. Our podcast went so long on the first conspiracy theory that I had two subjects. That's it. Two subjects I wanted to talk about. The Denver airport, which is fascinating and completely weird, and chemtrails. I never got to chemtrails. So maybe this week I can get to both subjects. I don't know. And this will go up on YouTube. So if you have anybody who might be interested in learning some more about the Warrens or their work, go ahead and tell them because it will be over there. And I have a Patreon account. And I say this every week. It's not imperative or it's not required that you donate to the Patreon. All my content is free. It's something that each listener can decide for themselves. And I had a good time tonight, Jory. Did you?
Yeah, I had a good time. And I just wanted to throw this out there to the listeners, too. So next week is conspiracy theories. The following week, and we know Wednesday of that week is 4th of July, but we might angle a podcast as I will be at Exit Lights location in a rare event.
In a rare event. Jory is going to be in my living room.
I will be live with Exit Lights.
Yeah.
2 weeks from today. So if you don't have any plans for 4th of July and you feel like you want a special kind of podcast, we'll give it a shot. And
maybe that week we can do it on a Thursday.
Maybe. We'll see. But I will be there. That would be
a lot of fun. So that is something to look forward to because, with the two of us in the same room, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. I have a website. I have a Facebook page. It's Exit Light. Maya will put the link down. Rob has a Facebook page, and it's called Paranormal and Supernatural World that Maya can put the link to. And like I said, next week's podcast, conspiracy theories, super fun, very interesting. I cannot wait. And then the week after that, me and Jory sitting in the living room talking about I don't even know what yet.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, so thank you, everybody, for coming and showing your support. I really cannot thank you enough. Thank you, Jory, for being my guest host.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and thanks to everyone for listening and putting up with our brand of sense of humor and my inability to pronounce people's names.
Yeah, our odd sense of humor. That the apple did not fall far from that tree, I can tell you. And if
thank you for tolerating our Skype issues too. So thank you for
Yes, thank
tolerating the
you.
Skype issues. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was times where my mom was cutting out, and I'm like, I hope everyone else is hearing me.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about the technical glitches.
Yeah.
Maybe Ed was like, "You guys are done. You're
Yeah.
done. So stop talking."
We're not breaking. We're not going into my personal life. You're done.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you on my channel with new content. And I'll remind you again that Jory is going to be starting up his channel again. And I can't wait for that because he is a lot of fun to watch and to listen to. And good night. You gonna say good night?
Oh, I guess. Good night.
Bye.